Chapter 15 is about art history, where it started. And when we study art history, we study humankind, life, culture, what's happening in that time. Then, with studying the art object and history of the art, we can find a lot of the information about humans. So, we are looking of the human and when and where we find humans tools. Remember, if we are talking about the humankind, we know that they were not very physically strong, but they had a strong imagination and they could imagine some things and make it. Then the skill of give birth to your imagination was the power of humankind. The tools that you see here, it's from 2 million years ago. The first kind of tool that we see, uh, Paleolithic period or caveman people, they made it. It's interesting that it took about 1 million years until you see that they start to make each of these stones sharper and make it more skillful. But you see that in this, they found it in the East Africa, and they started to make the tools, and all of them they are functional. None of them we can say that it's an artwork, and they just made it to make a symbol or use of this to look at this and enjoy it. Then the first object that we consider it the first artwork, this is this um, ochre shapes, that it has a cubic shapes that you see, and they found it in South Africa. It's about 77,000 years old. Then people still is in the old stone age. The tools are very simple in that period, and they live in caves. And the sign that you see on these, some of the parallel lines that make a diamond shape here, these we think it's symbols they found a Austriche egg close to this place, that it has the same design on this. Then we think it's the first design or symbol that humankind created. So, and when we are talking about the first figure that we see in the history of human, this is the first or the oldest that we found so far. So far, the Venus of Holofernes figure is the oldest figure, human figure that we found. You see that it's belonged to 37,000 years ago. And what is this shape? It's a female figure. When I'm in class and I'm asking my student, what is this figure? A lot of times they tell me it's a chicken. Uh, but look at the breast and look at the stomach and the sexual attribute, that you can see that all of them, we see that the artists exaggerate on them. But where is the head? We don't have a head. We just have a ring for the string. We think that this is a small object. When you see it's a 2.5 inch, and they made it on the mammoth's tusk, carved it on the mammoth tusk. Then it's very small, and we think that they carry this object with themselves uh, everywhere, uh, like a necklace. But why we call it Venus of Holofernes? Look at the next picture that we have. This is the Venus of Willendorf. I know that you see the title Woman of Willendorf, but mostly we know it as a Venus of Willendorf. For years and years, we thought that we had it as the oldest figure of human. And you see, when we are looking up, and both of them, we see that next to each other, we see in the both the breast, the stomach, the sexual part, all of them exaggerate on them. We don't have leg in the first one, but we have leg in the second one, but not feet. But none of these sculptures was made to stand by itself. They carry it in their hands or pockets or as a necklace. Then you see that we don't see for the first one head, and second one has a head but not a face. Something's like hair is everywhere. And they call it Venus because Venus is the symbol of beauty, symbol of goddess of beauty, goddess of fertility. And we think that in that period of time, being fat was some things that people like. You see that in 2020 that we are talking about, the somebody is beautiful that be very um, very trim actually body and the size 2 4 or something like that, but it was different because if you are fat you can survive when it's ice age or you cannot find food. But the other things that most of the experts they believe on this, that these are the mother of earth and they are symbol of fertility, and that's why they made it very fat. They are not fat mostly is because they are pregnant. So another another image that we have, it's belong to about 41,000 years ago, and it's the first painting that or we found in a cave in Indonesia. Look, if you're looking at the top right corner, you can see that we have a track of the hands. It's look like that artist put the hands on the wall of the caves and blow powder, red powder on the around the hands, and that's why we see the track of hands. And in the left part and center we see some things like a deer or pig, or they call it deer pig. And this is the oldest painting that so far we found. And we have in the Paleolithic or Old Stone Age, we have a lot of the cave painting. They were using of the pigments like mineral pigments that they could find, the charcoal that they had, or even blood, but they add the animal fat to it, and that's why after years and years you see that we can see it still, we can see it, and they are in the pretty good shape. They are overlapped because for years and years, 100 years, people they were living in this cave, and it was not enough space for making art, and they overlap it. Interesting things is how much they are realistic. The shapes are very realistic and mostly animal. For a long time, they were thinking that the animal they had on the cave as a painting, it was for the hunting and good hunt that they were making on this. But after that, they found the rhino or lion or something like that, that we know that they were not a part of human diet. Then another theory is coming that it was for power, and you're getting connected to this beast animal and getting their powers and getting very strong. Still, again, all of them are theory. Another kind of the painting that we have, it's the painting that of instead of using of the um, pigments, they're using of the sketching. Okay, this one that we have, it's from the US, and you're gonna look at the link and you see more information. That if you're looking of this, we call it petroglyphs. And petroglyphs is mostly in some area that was a lot of times it's out of caves, around caves that we see here. So, and mention, but mostly I want to talk about this painting that it was in the Australia, and you see that instead of using of the pigments, they carving and scratching the rocks. Then this is another kind of the technique. What is the Neolithic period or New Stone Age? It's improve in the life of people was very revolutionary in the Neolithic period. Its transition between from the old Stone Age to New Stone Age, it make a major difference in life. So we see that it started between 9,000 years ago to 6,000 before actually current area. Then it's 11 to 8,000 years ago in northwest of Iraq and in Iran. And when we are looking of the life of the people that in the Paleolithic or Old Stone Age, we know that they were living in the caves, and they were nomadic. Then they were going for hunting, and they were moved from one place to other place to search for food, to search for hunting. And when they're coming in the Neolithic, it's changing. Then the major shift from the nomadic group to a small agricultural communities happened that we see here. Then human life got stabilized, and we see that they started to produce early agricultural and product, and they can save it because for the first time they can make a pottery. Then they start to make some jar, some container for themselves. Then they can reserve the seeds for the next year for planting. This was another very great um, improvement improvement in the life of the people. When we are looking of the art, again, the art we see here, it's very abstract, very abstract. Then it's different from the work of the cavemen, and that was very realistic. You see in the top of this vase or jar that they found it in Iran, you see it's in the top part is a very long neck birds, and after that some dogs in bottom top of them that they chasing each other, and we see in the main part a goat, and all of them in very abstract shape. And in this one, it's from the China. You see that we have the abstract shape, that it can be shells, it can be waves, but very abstract shape that we can see here. One very, very famous Neolithic architecture um, is a Stonehenge here. And I'm not gonna talk about the Stonehenge. You're gonna watch the movie, and it's a very interesting history from this part of the world. It's in the British in lands, and look at just watch the movie. Don't forget, it's very interesting. After Neolithic, that it's a new Stone Age, we are starting to see people they found metals. Bronze was the first one that they found. Then their skills improved a lot, because with the metal they can make stronger tools. And in this the same period, we see that people, instead of the a small community, they start making cities and live in the cities. Then this is one thing, that you have to live in the cities and have a government system. And for having the government system, you have to have a rulers and rules, and you have to have a writing system. And the products is from the metal, especially from the bronze, and agriculture techniques improve in this time too. Then all of them together, we see the first civilization that we call it Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is the meaning is a land between two rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, or Dejle and Frat. That right now most of the is in the today modern Iraq, a part of this in Syria, and a part of this in Iran. Then this land, because of they had lands that was great for planting, for agriculture. They had easy access to water. Then these lands was great for making cities, and civilization start here. Then we call it cradle of the civilization. The first government that we see is Sumerian. Sumerian, they were the first people that they started the writing system. Cuneiform is the first writing system that we see. They believe in polytheistic. It means that they believe in several gods, and they believe that their kings are very powerful, and they had this belief that he's a semi-god. The first novel that we have, Epic of Gilgamesh, was written in the Sumerians writing system, cuneiform, and it was on the 12 large stela that we have them in the museum right now. And man-made mountain, or that we start to see it many years before that, but ziggurat was one of the largest one that I see. The ziggurat of Ur, that it's we see in the Iraq today, it was a temple in the top of this. It was in the different levels, three main levels that they have. In the top of this, it was a temple that was belonged to Nana, or god of moon. You're gonna watch the movie about this one too. And after that, we are looking of the next government that ruled uh, on the Mesopotamia, conquered Sumerian, and when you're looking of the head of an Akkadian rulers, you can see that um, the art's getting more realistic again. You see that it's showing a lot of the human features in the realistic manner, and they're using of the art mostly for showing the leaders, the power of leaders, and for the religious mm, purpose. And this is the most mainly important part for them. And you see that the eye of this Akkadian ruler was gouged off, and by opposition. So what uh, government we had after Akkadian is Assyrian, and in the Assyrian, Ashur Nasirpal was one of the most powerful kings, and he was very powerful. If we see a lot of story that he was fighting by, by himself, just himself, with lions. And you're looking of the one of the symbols that we see here, and again you see that how the use of the art and showing their power. They believe that the head of this Lamusu, that is the name of this creature, is a king's head. Then it's showing the power of humankind. The hat that you see here, it's and mostly we call it horned cap. It symbolizes divinity. Then it's showing that the king is connected to gods. Then uh, whatever that he says, you have to just obey it, because he's connected to God. His rule is the God's rule. And we see that the body is the body of a lion, then showing that how powerful he, he is, and the wings of the eagle, an eye of eagle. Then wherever that he is, even in the sky, he can see you. And what are you doing? And something that is interesting, this is a guardian symbols. It's in the gate, and when you're looking of this from the front side, you see that the two legs or two hands, I don't know, it's completely like standing still and not moving. When you see this still um, pose, it means that he's a guardian. He protects people. But when you're looking off the side, you see that he's moving. Then it's showing that for the enemies that he can chase you, and he can just coming after you. Babylon was the next civilization that we see in the Mesopotamia. We have a lot of the stories even in the Bible about Babylon, and one of the very beautiful gates that they have was Ishtar gates. The Ishtar gates of Babylon right now is in a museum in Germany. They just move it to the Germany, and look at the center and the gate that it's belong to museum, and it's a almost very tall gate and door, and just compare it with the blue arcs that we have and see how we can see the beauty and magnificent kind of architecture that they have in the Babels. The Ishtar was the god of love, god of fertility, and god of war. Then they named these gates Ishtar because they wanted the Ishtar protect them. And all of these animals that you see on the walls, they are protector. They are protector of the people here. We have stories of the Babylon that's talking about the Tower of Babylon. That it was a very long and large tower that Babylonians they made it to get closer to God, and another was hanging gardens that they're using of the very um, skillful kind of the watering system to make these gardens. So the next civilization that we see, and it was very some part of this overlap, the Mesopotamia's is ancient Egypt. Egypt, they had the Nile, and Nile was a very great source for them to use up the water, and they can use up these for the agriculture. Then you see that all the early civilization, it was next to a good source of the water. Then when we are looking at the architecture that they had, we see that it was very um, advanced architecture for that times. We are looking at the Rosetta Stone. And Rosetta Stone, this is the stone Napoleon Bonaparte. He moved it from the Egypt to Paris in France to use up, and the people that they know the language, they found out that a part of it's a three language on this, and it's written in ancient Egyptians or hieroglyphs, and it's another language that it's ancient Greek. Then the use of the ancient Greek that they could read it and decode the hieroglyph script. For the Egyptian, some things that was they obsessed with this was death and life after death. They believe that your life gonna continue after death, and that's why one of the art that we see they were making it when they started to rule as a pharaoh. They were starting to make tomb for themselves, and this tomb, as much as it can be larger and more magnificent, it was showing the power of them. The first pharaoh, the Narmer, this is the tomb of Narmer, and you see that we have a very flat tombs. They tried to hide the tombs because in the tombs they had a lot of the treasure, but it didn't work for them. The thief they found it and robbed the tombs. Then after that is that we see they started to make great pyramids in Casa. And when you're looking of these, they are magnificent. One of the beautiful work of the humankind that you can see it, and the function of them was tomb. Then they make it as a tomb. If you're going inside of the pyramids, you don't have enough space to walk, and you don't have enough space at all. It's a small spaces in the pyramids that just look at this picture, that you can see that it's just the biggest part that we have is a grand gallery for moving the body of the queen in the bottom part, and king chamber that we have the tomb of king here or pharaoh here. The entrance was completely covered. Then they didn't know where is the entrance, and they wanted to just hide the treasure and inside of this, but it didn't work to theft. They found it and robbed the tombs. Remember that they were making mummies from the body, and they believe that for it's very very important that you preserve your body, because after your death, ka or souls getting separate from the body, and this ka has to go toward a journey, and after past all of the journeys, trips and exams, gonna back to join the body, and both of them together they're gonna go live the life of after death. Then that's why they were making mummy. If you cannot afford to make a mummy, your car was gonna wandering around the world forever. And a part of mummying was that they put the organs in these canopic jars. Then one of them has the intense stomach, heart, and the other organs. The organs that they believe that it's just doesn't do anything and they don't need to preserve it was brain. Then they bring out the brain from nasals and just throw it away. The This is the tomb that again you're gonna look at the links and watch the links about a very successful female pharaoh and how she created her tombs here. We talk about the art of the Egypts and how they try to make the art. It's important that you see that for the thousands of years the art was the same, but in the small, just short period of time that it's changed a little, but mostly it was the same. And it wasn't because they couldn't improve it or change it. They didn't want to. For a long time they want to just have the same kind of art because it has the meaning for them. So we are looking of the one sculpture here, and just remember that the sculpture that you see here, it's was not only for the monument and how they wanted to remember the pharaohs, but it was because it was a place for the car to rest. In the journey of the car from the after the to back to the body, they were making some sculptures that it was rest area for the car. And you see that the most of the picture that we or sculpture that we see in this period of time, the hands is mostly next to the body where is thief. The kind of the stone that they were using was the same, and mostly pharaoh has one feet in front of the other feet. Pharaoh is the largest figure, and hierarchical scale is the name of the when we are making one figure larger than the other ones to show the power of the figure. And remember that pharaoh was semi-god too. But one of the most famous pharaoh was the Tut pharaoh or Tutankhamun. And when we are looking up his life, he died when he was 18 or 19. Then he didn't live for a long time, but he became very famous. And you're looking up the watch their links that we have here, because for sure you have to know why he is that famous. And the painting, if you're looking at the painting again, you see the pharaoh hierarchical scale that showing we see the head in the I'm sorry, profile shape, but we see the eyes that it's showing it from the front. And Pharaoh is the largest figure here. After that, it's a queen and their daughters. The painting was again the same style for years and years, and they wanted to keep it in the same way. And one of the very famous women in the history of the Egypt, that she was very famous for her beauty, was Cleopatra. And Cleopatra was involved with some of the Romans leaders. Watch this link too, and I want to know what do you think about Cleopatra after that.